should talk about some of the other things that
Oh,
are in here. Too.
sure, absolutely.
I have some books in here. This one, Chris made for me.
Oh,
So it will probably go back to Chris.
pictures and stuff.
Yeah. This one is Dickens' Christmas
Oh,
Carol.
Christmas Carol. Oh, wow.
And it's very old.
Oh my goodness.
I don't know how old it is. It's coming apart. But,
Yeah.
to Eleanor and Norris. Norris was Aunt Eleanor's husband's name, from Frank, and that would have been from my grandfather, Frank. Christmas
1902.
1902.
Wow.
Yeah. So I don't know, it's at least that old, obviously. This one was a book that my Aunt Florence made when she was probably a teenager. She cut out things she liked and she put them in here.
Oh, like flowers.
Yeah.
Wow. Actual flowers.
Yeah, they're actual flowers. They may have been from her boyfriend.
Mm.
There was a very sad story about that.
Oh.
Her boyfriend was very shy and he wanted to marry her, so he went to talk to her father, and her father wasn't home, so he left a letter. And the letter got lost for 6 months. It was He left it on a table and it got mixed up in all the books and stuff that were there.
Gosh.
They weren't the greatest housekeepers. And by the time it was found, he had given up and had gone on to another woman, so she never married.
Oh, goodness.
And, that's very sad.
It is.
Okay, what's this one? This one is
Looks like a journal of some
a
sort.
journal, yeah. Trip to
2005.
Thailand. That's
Ah.
the only thing I think that's in it.
Your trip to Thailand.
Yeah. I don't know if anybody will ever want that or not.
Well, it's always interesting to read.
And this is my great-grandmother's...
Yearbook, 1925.
Well, actually, this is my great-grandmother's diary.
W. Atkinson. Wow.
And you might like to look through it,
Yeah.
because she was Aunt Kate and Aunt Florence and Aunt Eleanor's and my grandfather Frank's mother. And she really writes from her heart some things.
Wow.
And you might like to look through it while you're here.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know who's going to end up with it. She just wrote on some of the pages. But I certainly hope that somebody wants it.
Who wrote that? It says Frank W. Atkinson.
Well,
but-
Frank W. Atkinson was her son.
Okay.
And she was living with them at that time because her husband had died.
Ah.
And so he probably just gave her this yearbook, 1925.
Mm-hmm.
She died in, I think, 31 or 33, something like that. She was really very old when she died. I'm
What's
not
her
sure.
name? Do you remember?
Her name was Catherine.
Catherine. Huh.
Imagine
How nice.
that. You're named after her, except that you're named after... There have been a lot of Catherines in the family. Her daughter was Catherine also,
Ah.
and Aunt Kate,
That was your great Aunt Kate.
my great Aunt Kate. So she was my great-grandmother.
Okay.
So, and it's interesting to read what she was,
Yeah.
read what she was writing. And I hope that this
1925.
goes down in the family.
Hmm.
So it will be in the last few years of her life that this was written. I don't know if there's a card in here for her burial or not.
Hmm.
I don't know what that is. But she had an interesting life. She was born into a very large family. I think there were 12 kids in the family.
Oh.
And her mother gave her to her grandmother after she was born.
Oh.
Because
to
her grandmother
raise-
was living alone and needed somebody to live with her. So she
Okay.
lived with her grandmother. And her mother would come and visit every so often, and she knew that was her mother, but her mother really never paid any attention to her.
Huh.
And so she grew up living with her grandmother and did not
Interesting.
appreciate that
Mm.
her mother had given her away.
Well, that would be painful.
Yeah. So then she married my great-grandfather, who was William, who had been in the Civil War.
Oh, yeah.
And they had a nice life. He became a lawyer, and his brothers were lawyers too, most of them. And he did well.
Mm-hmm.
He was a good speaker, and he would go and talk about the Civil War
Mm.
and his experiences in escaping from the South from a
Right.
jail in the South. You've heard about that.
Mm-hmm.
And making his way north. And he wrote poetry, and I have some of his poetry. In fact, you have some of his poetry too, because that
Book that
book
you made,
that
right?
I made has some of his poetry in it. And so they did very well. They lived in Detroit at that time, and they were among the upper class in Detroit. And and then, of course, after he died in his 60s from pneumonia. And, of course, there was nothing you could do for pneumonia then. And they said it was because he had been shot through the lungs
Oh,
when he was in the Army.
my goodness.
And
Had lived with that all that
and
time.
had lived with that all that time.
Wow.
So they said that was why he wasn't able to fight the pneumonia, and he died from it.
My goodness.